And these are all the pluses are where EPC does their monthly sampling. The asterisk, it got displaced when I copied this over, it should be in the ship channel, is the ADCP under the Skyway Bridge. This is a monthly average of the current speed going through the Skyway Bridge. Red means it's going into the bay, blue means it's going out. Well, in the ship channel, the water is going into the bay on average almost all the time, but it's modulated by the amount of fresh water that comes into the bay, which sets up horizontal salinity gradients, which lead to horizontal density gradients. Those density gradients lead to an overturning classical estuarine circulation with saltier Gulf of Mexico water flowing up the ship channel, spreading out onto the flanks of the bay, mixing with the fresh water that comes in around the edges of the bay, and then flowing out near the surface or on the flanks of the bay as a somewhat slightly fresher outflow. So that's called the gravitational overturning circulation, or simply the estuarine or tidal residual circulation. So the strength of that circulation is proportional to the strength of that horizontal salinity gradient. But if you plot, this is work that Steve Byers and I have done in the last couple of years, if you plot the salinity gradient on the horizontal axis versus the strength, or a measure of the strength of that overturning circulation on the vertical axis, you get this hysteresis loop. July being very strong overturning circulation as the, well, see, the color coding here is the volume of freshwater input. And so as you go around the seasons, the dry season from October to December, January time frame, you see a decrease in that overturning circulation from its maximum at the end of the rainy season during the summer months to the slightly wetter winter season. You see it continue to decrease, does some funky things in the spring because of the changing wind patterns and precipitation patterns. But in early summer, when it starts to get really wet, you see the maximum freshwater inflow in the August-September time frame. You see basically a linear increase in the strength of that overturning circulation as that density gradient and freshwater input increases. But then when the dry season comes, it doesn't go back down that straight line. It follows a very different path because it takes a while for vertical mixing to erode the strength of that overturning circulation. The point of all this being that you never would have figured that out had you not had 20 years worth of ADCP data and salinity data at those 56 points around the bay. Lately, we've begun mining this AIS data, this automated identification system. We've gotten all the data from 2014 through 2017 and some of the 2018 data. Every vessel over about 20 meters or 300 gross tons, I think, is mandated by U.S. and international law to carry a transponder that sends all of its position data, its course and speed over the bottom, and its draft and various particulars about the vessel itself, including its International Maritime Organization identification number, from which you can pull out all the particulars of the vessel, its length, its beam, its freeboard, all of those sorts of things. There's lots of stuff you can glean from having that kind of information. This is just a year's worth of AIS data around the state of Florida, color-coded by vessel type. The green ones, I believe, are passenger vessels. The red ones are tankers, or is it the other way around, Steve? And you can see all the cruise ships coming and going from Miami and Port Canaveral, and some coming in and out of Tampa Bay. You see a lot of the petroleum tankers. All of our gasoline in this part of Florida comes from refineries in Houston and around the Louisiana-Texas coastline. There's a train of ships that come back and forth between here and those western Gulf of Mexico ports. That's something like 56% of all the refined petroleum product for the state of Florida comes underneath the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. So when something shuts the ship channel down for any length of time, it has ripple effects throughout the entire Florida economy. That's why we need to get the ports open as quickly as possible after events like Irma. So you can start to mine this. If you go to marinetraffic.com, you can see, this is just a snapshot I grabbed off earlier today of all the AIS reports from around the globe. You very quickly see patterns that emerge from these vessel tracks. One of the things that Steve and I are doing now is looking at the impact of ship wakes on critical marine habitat around Tampa Bay. By mining this information, you know what ships of what size, of what draft are coming in at what speed, and how often, and you can begin to develop statistics of how much ship wake energy is going to impact critical bird nesting areas or seagrass beds and things like that. This is funded through Tampa Bay Estuary Program in collaboration with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So you can look at the types of ships, their seasonal distribution, and the actual energy of the ship wakes themselves. We put out, how much time do I have, Schwanmin? Zero, okay. Then I won't show you these, but if you go to our website, which is cmps.marine.usf, click on some of these links and you can see some animations from that study, as well as an interesting one from looking at vessel tracks during Hurricane Matthew and how they all cleared out and then immediately came back in behind. And lastly, all of this interaction with the local maritime community has led to us establishing a Center for Maritime and Port Studies and a curriculum in maritime and port studies. And in fact, it's not too late to sign up for my online course in maritime and port studies. You have until later this afternoon. I'm not sure what the cutoff time is, but it's all online except for a field trip to the Tampa Port Authority. And this is meant to be the introduction to a certificate program in maritime and port studies, working with people in other colleges who are teaching courses that are related to how ports operate, things like supply chain logistics or cybersecurity or disaster response. So thank you. I'll stop there.